why only being a radio station for ill people is not a long-term plan. So I'm not saying that I've got all the answers to everything, and I'm not saying that even the answers that I do have are the only answers to some of the questions that we are going to ask ourselves during this hour. It will hopefully be slightly less than an hour. In preparation for the talk last year, Andrew Pike, who is the Managing Director at Basildon and Thurrock University Hospitals in Essex, a big supporter of hospital radio, I spoke to him to try and get an NHS look at the issues going forwards, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. To give you some history about myself, I am a associate member of the HBA, and I've volunteered for 25 years at Hospital Radio Chelmsford. I left there at the end of 2016. So that's kind of my history. I absolutely love hospital radio. It's the thing that got me started. I was lucky enough, and you didn't see this in the original talk last year, but I was lucky enough that I got to meet the Queen. And I was invited to Buckingham Palace. This was after becoming the HBA Volunteer of the Year in 2008 for a move that I did from one hospital to another. And I was invited to meet the Queen. It was a celebration for those for their work in healthcare. And so I got to meet her and have a little chat with her and talk to her about the benefits of hospital radio. So I come from this from a point of love, but I'm also concerned that if all you are, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, if all you are is a radio station for ill people, I'm a bit concerned about where we're going to go from there. So yeah, I'm worried because if you're a radio station for ill people in hospital beds, I'm concerned that you're going to become either irrelevant or not have a means of distribution within the next 5 to 10 years. And then you're going to either have to pivot in a quick and major way or actually close down. And I'm hearing, even since the time that I did the talk last year, I'm hearing of a couple of stations where Hospedia's coming out and they're feeling like they've got no other reason to exist. And so they're just thinking the easiest thing is just to close down. And I don't want stations to close down. I want stations to sort of improve and carry on. In the talk last year, I asked how many stations were over 30 years old. Also, how many of them are stations that just broadcast their radio station via a bedside entertainment system. And also via the internet alongside the bedside system, and also how many of you know when the current contract for the bedside entertainment system is up for renewal. That one is really, really important. So if you have got Hospedia in or any bedside entertainment system, do you know when that contract expires? If not, go and have a little chat with the trust. I'm trying to think whether it would probably be the IT people that might be best placed to let you know. And you need to find out that date and see how far in advance it is and whether there's any break contracts and what the hospital's current feeling on it is. I think that's going to be really, really important going forwards. So for the talk last year, I was asked to outline a vision for Hospital Radio 2.0. And I think we're actually at about version 3 or even more. The way I see it, version 1 was initial setup. Version 2 was going 24 hours. Version 3 may have been going onto the internet as well as bedside. And maybe version 4 is becoming a community radio station with a healthcare focus. But anyway, I don't think we're only at 2.0. I think hospital radio is way beyond that. And so in order to look forwards, I think that we need to look back here. So we're going to go through the past, the present, and it will also sort of see where we are, and we'll look at the future as well. So let's have a look at the past. So in the past, we obviously had lots of beds in hospital, and we'll talk about the numbers in a minute. We also had longer stays, so people were in. Also, certainly in my hospital station, we had some long-term care patients, which were fantastic because you really got to know them, got to know their names, and they got to know you, and that was wonderful. So you had a longer stay. Also, a big benefit of hospital radio in the past was the lack of choice. Yeah, we only had one or two radio channels, and if that, and often if the other radio channel that wasn't hospital radio was a little bit dodgy, it might have just been unplugged for a while and then never plugged back in again. And then, of course, they had the TV in the day room. So if they wanted to watch telly, it was a real effort, wasn't it? Real effort to go off. And you had the bedside headphones. Not very nice headphones, but you had bedside headphones. The old stethoscope stuff. So that was the past. Also, in the past, it must be said that you didn't have many other radio stations around. Certainly local radio stations. You often didn't have many of those around. We didn't get our BBC local station until 86, something like that, and maybe the commercial station started a couple of years before that, but we certainly had sort of 20 years on them. So, present, fewer beds. We'll talk about that later. Oh no, we'll talk about it right now. So we got fewer beds, and the King's Fund is a sort of not-for-profit organisation that did a load of research in 2016, and they looked at the total number of NHS beds in England, including general and acute mental illness, learning disability, maternity and day-only beds. So 1987, you had 299,000 beds. And do you want to have a little think about what you think it's going to be for 2016? Obviously, the provision for mental illness, I think we all know, has gone down quite a lot recently. But in 2016, the number of beds was 142,000. So that is a drop of 52.4%. Okay? So there's 52% fewer beds in hospitals. The number of overnight general and acute, because overnight is kind of our bread and butter because we go off, request shows are often in the evening. We had 180,889, and then in 2016 it's gone down to just over 100,000. So just over 100,000 beds. So we've lost nearly 80,000. We've lost 43.4% of overnight beds. The average length of stay, we know this has gone down. 1998-99, it was 8.4 days, and it's gone down to 4.9. So not quite a half, but it's gone down. So we've got fewer beds. We've also got shorter stays as well. We've currently got the bedside entertainment system, giving us 6 radio channels, 29 TV channels, with headphones often supplied, not always supplied, but often supplied by the bedside entertainment provider. And at the moment, it's rolling out, and it's pretty much everywhere, free Wi-Fi. And I always have to put an asterisk at the end of free Wi-Fi because it seems wherever that word is, there's always an asterisk. And so it might not be free, it might be free for an hour, and then you might have to pay. But Wi-Fi is becoming ever present. And of course, mobile phones. We had the relaxation of the rules on mobile phones. They finally decided that it wasn't going to set off any machines, and so people are either talking on their mobile phones, listening to content, watching stuff, downloading stuff, all sorts. So that was the past and the present. The future. Bit of future gazing for us. Shorter stays, we know that. And those that are in will be more serious in conditions. Yeah, so the people that are in, I think probably it would be safe to say picking a record is going to be the least of their worries. The good news is not much change in the number of beds. Upturn in day surgeries, definitely people coming along in and out in a day. hardly have to feed them, don't have to water them, they're not tying up overnight staff, and care in the community and away from the central hospital. So more power to the surgeries, GP surgeries, etc., and other sort of health facilities. And of course, you're finding that a lot of private hospitals are also taking on some NHS. And free Wi-Fi, and bring your own device, and the headphones. And so that's an interesting one, because obviously before, the bedside entertainment provider potentially would supply the headphones, and so it might be that hospital radio stations will have to start paying for the headphones themselves. So that's going to be a cost for us. Reduction or removal of the bedside entertainment system, that is coming. And the merging of hospital trusts. So the chap that I spoke to, Andrew Pike, he's merging with the hospital that I used to be involved in at Broomfield, Mid-Essex, and they're joining South Essex and merging all together. And then there is a question of, do we need 2, 3 hospital radio stations providing that merged larger trust, or not? Or can we just have a super station, or no station at all? So then, I asked myself the question, if I was starting a hospital radio station today, what would I do? And let me just get my piece of paper here. I can turn that bit off. If I was starting a hospital radio station today, I would ask for a TV channel along with a radio channel, because you might as well ask, and then you have the benefits of supplying additional content. So I would ask for a TV channel. If it was a bedside entertainment system, I would ask for that. I'd also potentially ask for one even if it was some sort of internet delivered thing. Requests, definitely. I would have a request show, proven benefit of ward visiting, hearing their favourite record. And to a certain degree, that would probably be all the sort of presenters that I needed, really. So I would be really, really focused on a request show, chance to repeat it, all sorts. I'd potentially not have my hospital radio station on the internet. I would just keep that on the side there, because then that would free up some rights restricted material. So certainly back in the day, we used to play a lot of comedy stuff, Hancock's Half Hours, all sorts of different comedy bits and pieces that we wouldn't potentially have rights for. Well, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have the rights for. And so by not being on the internet, you can sort of potentially get away with it a little bit more, maybe. And smart automation and clever scheduling. Yeah, I would basically allow for a request to be played anytime at all. I'd have some smart scheduling based around meal times, doctor's rounds, the newspaper shop trolley, time checks with visiting hours, and sort of things like that. So it would be sort of, it's 2:00. The visiting times are now open. You know, prepare yourself for your visitors if you've got any. If not, we'll be here for you, type of stuff. So I think that's what I would do in terms of a radio station. I think a hospital radio station. So these can be implemented in your existing station, of course. And I'm not going to teach you how to do a hospital radio station, but I'm just going to say, do stuff that no one else would. Make it good, make it warm, think smooth, not capital. We used to do a thing called the Night Network, which was a sort of relaxation exercise, and then just basically chilled music for the rest of the hour for people during the night. It used to run sort of midnight until 4, something like that. Designed for people, if they were anxious, just to be able to turn on the radio and do a sort of a breathing exercise, calm themselves down again, and just relax and sort of get rid of the ward noises in the background. And no one else was doing that. It wasn't, for a well person, it wasn't necessarily a brilliant listen. but it just offered something different on the dial than a jukebox going around. And of course, lots and lots of comedy. Did lots of that. Think about using the staff as station voices, welcome message from the chairman or the chief executive, or, this is Nurse Gladys on J Ward and you're listening to Hospital Radio Chelmsford. That kind of thing. Really sort of make it feel like truly the radio station for that hospital. Don't necessarily, get a voiceover. You don't need your station to sound like Heart. You just need it to sound warm, good, professional, but of where it is. Also have a think about a portable studio as well. There are many available, and with Wi-Fi going in around hospitals, there's plenty of chance to be able to broadcast back. Get yourself out of your studios. Studios are often at the back of nowhere. Get yourself into the front. Either have a roving reporter there on a smartphone using cleanfeed.net on a laptop or Skype or whatever, and get them grabbing people as they go in. Sell that portable studio to businesses. I came up with the idea of businesses being able to be a headphone hero and have basically a picture of a headphones, and then studio assisted by X business. Yeah, have a big studio on wheels. Call it Feels on Wheels is what I came up with, but it's a stupid idea. And then with that studio, you could take that into the children's ward, and the children could pre-record a request show of their own, an hour, a kids' hour, and then you could stick it on CD and give it back to them, and that would just be great, and just some added value, and also it would give the nurses a bit of a break in the children's ward to be able to go off and do that. So yeah, have a think about those ideas. And yeah, I would potentially remove all programs apart from the request show and use the volunteers elsewhere. Elsewhere is what we're going to get onto in a minute. I wrote an article on my site, sent it to the HBA with some extra ideas to really add value to the trust or the hospital that you're in, and we're going to go there into that article a little bit. If you can interweave yourself into the fabric of the hospital, it's going to make it harder for them to get rid of you. That is, of course, if you don't want to be. So here are some ideas that I came up to give your trust some extra value. Let me just see whether I've got another slide here. Oh yeah, I have. Wonderful. So idea number 1 was an interview room. Yeah. Do you have an area that could be made available to trust staff during the day that they could go to and be interviewed live or pre-recorded by a radio station? Even if it's just a cupboard with a PC in there. BBC Local Radio uses a thing called Call Me, which you can just have on a Chromebook, or it works in Google Chrome, and that would be a way for the BBC Local station. They could set you up with an account, and you could connect that person directly to that BBC Local radio station so they could do interviews. It'd be a nice dedicated space. You could stick a few egg cartons and a bit of sound deadening in the cupboard, and then that NHS executive or whomever doesn't need to drive all the way to the radio station to do an interview. They can just do it remotely there. There is also some dedicated hardware solutions which Vortex sell as well, which would go through. You could install Skype on there. Also cleanfeed.net is a way to do some audio via the internet. And so with Skype, you could stick a webcam on there, but more of that a little later on. So yeah, we'll save the NHS having to leave the site to go to the radio station. And it might be that the NHS IT department could supply the PC and or the internet connection. And then you could use that room in the evenings to voice track some shows or pre-record interviews yourself. So it's kind of a double-edged thing, but if you've got a room that could be sort of siphoned off, and you could offer the trust and say, look, we've got this interview room that you could brand the media centre or something, then I think that would be good. Could also be used as an unattended space for recording audio. Just imagine if you could get your chaplaincy team to go along to the area, hit record, and record some thoughts for the week, for example. When I spoke to Andrew from the NHS, he was very keen on this idea as a sort of quiet area to go and be interviewed. That was also welcome. So that is idea number one, interview room. Like I say, these are just my thoughts. I'm not necessarily saying these are the only way, but there you go. I know you've seen TV studio up there and you're all shouting at me, but we do radio. Well, yes, but if you've got a room with no outside light or a larger studio space that isn't utilised, then do consider putting a camera on a tripod connected to a PC, webcam and a lapel mic, attach it to Skype again to allow some live in-vision interviews to be done, and build up to a basic camera and a backdrop. That way you can do, the NHS Trust can do live interviews on TV, pre-records. The hospital department could come in to film something for use on their website or on their YouTube channel. Maybe the physiotherapy department could come in and do some exercises, some stretches, some, how to recover from knee surgery and things like that, which you could either stick on your website or they could stick on their hospital's website or YouTube channel, something like that. It's a space that could be used. There's some Facebook Lives for radio, a bit like I'm doing at the moment here. And it would also give you the ability to ask for volunteers that aren't necessarily into radio, that are interested in video instead. And so potentially widen out your recruitment and your volunteer base to people that are interested in video. So yeah, if you've got that space, or even if you've just got a studio that's quite big and you could stick a camera in there and position it in a way that they can do stuff, then I think sort of go for it. Webcams aren't cheap at the moment, but they will go back down in price after all of this palaver is over. So that is a TV studio idea. This one, I'm sure quite a few, I'm just going to have a slurp of water. I'm sure quite a few of you guys are doing this already. It's audio to waiting rooms or external surgeries. Yeah, just think of your charity or your organisation as an audio providing service to the NHS in your area. Don't just think of yourself as a radio station. You are an audio provider of audio services to the NHS in your area. Waiting rooms, communal areas, doctors' surgeries, some audio added to them as well. So yeah, if you if they've got a telly or something, then you could broadcast out the telly. And think, is your main hospital radio feed the best feed for them? I don't think it necessarily would be. I think you'd do better, because we all hope to not spend too much time in a waiting room, so perhaps the audio offering needs to be music and information jukebox style, so a bit like a sort of Asda FM type thing, a bit of music, then a bit of information, then a bit more music, then a bit of information, rather than a specialist hour on country. That would be fine if you wanted to run that on your hospital radio station, but I don't think necessarily for someone waiting in a waiting room that would be very good. Are you able to bring in the ability that they could request a song via an app or a touchscreen device? That would be great, wouldn't it? It's just like a sort of virtual jukebox. There are services available that can do that. You can search for a record, you can say, yes, I'd like that. And then within 2 or 3 records, that record track would come on. So in the conference last year, I was able to do some proper sort of show and tell type stuff. I'm unable to do that this time. Hello. I'm unable to do that this time, but I still got it here. So this is my Raspberry Pi. And so it's got HDMI there, HDMI, some audio headphones out there, and then round here, network cable, and some USB slots. Okay, and this is a Raspberry Pi. It's like, well, the whole thing, this was under £60. You can even get a Pi Zero now, which is just over £20, if not cheaper, and can do the same thing. So that's a Raspberry Pi. You can see it's like not much, not very big at all. And so with this, I set up last year, basically when this is plugged in and plugged into a TV, it plays a web stream and also cycles round a series of JPEGs of information that I just made up on PowerPoint. And it gave the bus times and things like that and which bus stop they came from. And so these use either Wi-Fi, you can use Wi-Fi, or you can plug in the network. And it could not be a web stream. It could just be a series of audio files played in a playlist. You just stick a USB memory stick in there, or it's got a little SD card in it, and you can stick the files just directly on the SD card, and they could play through a playlist and some images too. When I spoke to Wi-Fi Spark last year, they were up for giving these boxes unrestricted Wi-Fi access to their network. So if you've got Wi-Fi Spark in at your hospital, he would just need to know some details about the box, and then he'd give them unrestricted Wi-Fi access, so they would be able to access a web stream all the time for free. Could be configured to access Dropbox. You can remotely administer them. You can reboot them remotely, things like that. So if they get a bit stuck. And the benefit with these over, say, a Wi-Fi radio, we once gave the League of Friends some Wi-Fi radios, and it was probably a couple of weeks before they were tuned to Radio 2. Whereas this is fixed, and if it goes wrong, you could try just turning it off and turning it on again. That normally fixes it. There are other sort of solutions. And also, if you're a user of Myriad, they do a thing called a Myriad Auto Player, which is a bit of software that you could use to run this system on, to play the audio out of. And it's kind of very low administration. So that's that. That's audio to waiting rooms, external surgeries. Yeah, it doesn't just need to be in the hospital. Okay, next idea. Let's go up here. Next idea. Audio version of literature. Yeah, like I said, you are the audio providing service to your hospital. Voice any printed material that they produce to enable those with no or reduced sight to be informed about the services that the NHS Trust offers. You can stick those on your website. So you basically just say to the NHS, look, give me all you've got. Give me all you've got, and I'm going to voice it over, and you can just go onto the website, click play, and it will play. Also, look at doing video versions of audio content and put it up on YouTube. Yeah, I think I've got an example of something I did. So the NHS Trust were doing an event, and I very simply put it on I'd stuck some vision to it and stuck it up on YouTube and tweeted it out, and the Trust were over the moon with it. Let me see whether I can play it here. I very simply put it on you. I'd stuck some vision. Oh, wait a minute. To it. Sorry, let me just go in here. I know. Tweeted it out, and the Trust were over the moon with it. Let me see whether I can. Sorry about that, folks. That was right. Let me just mute that. Wonderful. Okay, that's better. Right. So I did this for the Trust.
Ever wanted to know what goes on behind the curtains? Now's your chance, as Brumfield Hospital is opening the doors and revealing a look behind the services. The Brumfield Hospital Open and Fun Day is on Saturday the 8th of August from 11 until 4. You can see how the theatres, world-class burns unit, helideck and robotic surgery really work, and take a tour of the award-winning grounds. For the children, there is a dinosaur experience, giant inflatables, and a guest appearance by Elsa from Frozen. If that's not enough, there are prizes to be won, craft and game stalls, and refreshments, and it's free to attend, and there'll be free parking too. Saturday the 8th of August, the Brumfield Hospital.
Okay, I'm just going to turn that down because you don't need to hear it all the way. So that's what I did for their open day, and they loved it. they were able to put it onto their social media. I think it was a website called Wordle. I basically wrote the script, pasted the script into Wordle. That came up with that word graphic, and then I whacked that on the end. Very, very simple. I think I used iMovie, but you could use Windows Movie Maker, which is free of charge, and just some visuals to go along with the message. Yeah, they were really grateful because they didn't need to do anything like that. It didn't take very long. We were making the promo to go on the radio anyway, and so we just made it that way. So all of these things that I've mentioned, just speak with your trust about. If you're thinking to yourself, well, we haven't got room for an interview room, Andrew's saying there, he's not sure it's practical at our hospital. Well, they might make room for it if they haven't already got a media area. Then they might make room for it. You never know. So yeah, speak with your trust about it. In most situations, they are your landlord, so it makes sense to speak with them so that you know of any changes to your accommodation or services as well. So that is important. Let's just go back to the presentation here. Okay, so some thoughts from the NHS. So those were my ideas. Audio versions of literature, audio to waiting rooms, TV studio, interview room. That's a few ideas. Andrew's saying, when looking at the ideas, what costs we would be asked to pay. All things have to be considered. They certainly do. They certainly do. It may well be that you find some people that have got stuff that they're willing to either give to you, lend you, do some sort of deal. It like you say, it does all need looking at, and you need to figure out the priorities. And it's sort of no good saving £1,000 for a rainy day if your distribution gets taken away from you, which the distribution is something that hospital radio has not had to worry about ever since it's existed. So some thoughts from the NHS. So these were thoughts from this time last year, just to caveat them. And this is from Andrew Pike, who's the chief executive at an NHS trust in Essex. So I asked him what the next 10 to 20 years look like. He doesn't see the number of beds dropping. The average stay reduced between half a day to a day, so looking to get down to 4 days maximum. And he expects to see an increase in those 90 to 100 years old being admitted. So again, that's going to be a hard sell, getting them to listen and getting them to listen with headphones on. And also, I don't think the uptake of the internet with 90 to 100-year-old people is that big. It is growing, but it's not that big. He also did let me know that no faxes will be allowed after the year 2021. So, the NHS is moving on. He sees more merging of hospitals, more of that. His hospital is about to merge with another 2 hospitals to form a super trust. And so there is a question over whether 3 hospital radio stations are needed. And also the quality of volunteer. It may be a requirement to help the trust more by asking further questions as part of their ward rounds and operate a bit more like the PALS service, patient liaison services, to question quality of care. So he was saying that in the future, the trust may ask more of the volunteers as they're going around. Why not ask a few more questions? How would you rate your stay? Things like that. And so the volunteer needs to be engaging with the ability of broadcasting visibly as well. Like I said, getting that portable studio. It's a different discipline than locking yourself into a padded cell for a bit of time. And he reiterated the need for you to know the IT team at the hospitals, get them on board, as that could open several doors to help with distribution and get your station on the internal intranet as well. So that was what he said with that. Are we there? Yes, I think we're there. That's the end of my slides. Let me just go back so that you've got my ugly mug to have a little look at. Hello. So that was his thoughts from there. So I think that's about it, really. Let's have a look at the questions. I'm just scrolling back here just to go through. Andrew's saying our hospital has a contract for many years ahead, 2038, I think. Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether that will end up lasting that way. Harrogate lost Hospedia on the 1st of November 2018. We've rolled out Wi-Fi radios. How's that going, Oliver? Is it going okay? Have you had to screw them to a wall? Things like that. Quite costly. How's the engagement on that? Radio Royal in Larbert on remote voice tracking. Select repeats at the moment. We like to do interviews, absolutely. So that's fine. Absolutely right. We're not a commercial radio station. No, you're not. Do stuff that they wouldn't dream of doing. Yeah, like the interview room, but not sure if it's going to be very practical. You have to follow what our individual trusts allow. Costs. We're currently fundraising for studio upgrades, but obviously that is on hold for the moment. Volunteered for another hospital radio station before, CHR, and found it almost impossible to get older people remotely interested in modern techniques. Love the fact you mentioned quality of volunteer. Absolutely. You need to get the right people. Steve Dundas says our trust don't seem to want to engage with us and keep putting off meetings with them. I wonder what their problem is. I wonder what their problem is with you. Try and think of something that you could do for the trust that would suddenly win you some favours. Have a chat with the volunteering manager and say to the volunteering manager that the trust seem to be putting you off. Work up a little presentation, send them something, invite them down to be interviewed to do a Desert Island Disc style programme, things like that. Just start pecking away at them. Ring up the switchboard, ask them if they want to come and be recorded. Grab anyone that you can, porters, all sorts. Get them down, get them visiting the station, do a virtual video, did you even know that we existed down this corridor here, that kind of thing. So I hope you've enjoyed the talk, and it's given you a sort of a virtual conference because we haven't got one. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope some of those points will just make you think. But yeah, just try and spread out a little bit, and you might need to reduce what you do for the main radio station in order to do it.